When you hear the word firehouse, what do you think of? You probably imagine a red building, often 2 stories tall, with 2 large garage-like doors. Within, there's probably a fire truck, an ambulance, a kitchen with some firefighters in it. Yet, among these descriptions, one item hasn't been mentioned yet, though it is probably the most synonymous with the concept of the firehouse itself. The fire pole. The fire pole is perhaps the most famous piece of technology to have arisen from the history of the fire department, but its origin remains highly unknown by the public. By the end of researching, it also became apparent that the history of the fire pole is not only tied to the history of Chicago, but also to breaking barriers. December 21st, 1872. Then current Mayor Joseph Medill allows for African Americans to join the fire department. The first all-African American engine company, Engine 21, is soon created afterwards. April 12, 1878. George Reed is in a rush to get to the bottom floor of the fire department, and in so doing, he rides a pole positioned from the 3rd floor to the 1st floor. The pole there was a special type of binding pole used to secure hay to the truck for transport. At this time, fire trucks still utilized horses. The captain of Reed's Engine 21, David Kenyon, bore witness to this. Subsequently, that same year, Captain David Kenyon developed the first sliding pole and installed it into Engine 21's quarters. David Kenyon and the crew of Engine 21 broke barriers. Not only did they break barriers by being one of the first all-African American fire companies, but by also developing one of the most important tools within the fire department. Kenyon's fire pole later made Engine 21 famous throughout the entire city and eventually the entire nation. According to fire historian DeKalb Walcott, who used to be a battalion chief of the Chicago Fire Department, this is because not only did the fire pole enable the company to reach insanely quick response times, some of which were never before seen in the department's history, but also because some of these response times were to other fire companies' fires. Interestingly, the initial fire pole design was constructed out of wood. This was later changed due to splinters and the eventual patenting of a brass fire pole in Boston in 1880. That brass design is the same one which has been used in firehouses even today. So what's the legacy of the fire pole today? During my real-world investigation, I visited 2 firehouses and a fire history museum. This led to growth in my understanding of how the fire pole was utilized and is remembered today. Both of the firehouses I visited had working fire poles installed. In one of the houses I visited, firefighters there mentioned that they use the fire pole at least 3 or 4 times a day, which is quite the high number. From both firefighters and scientific sources, it has been noted that fire poles save time when trying to reach a fire. It has been found out that up to 25 seconds can be saved by utilizing the pole. To see whether or not the speed increase was true, I recorded myself going down a fire pole and going down the stairs in one of the firehouses. In so doing, I could compare the speeds and time it took for me to reach the bottom floor. results of the experiment led to findings that while going down the stairs took only 25 seconds, going down the fire pole took only 13. This is up to a 12-second difference. While 12 seconds may not seem like a lot, in terms of saving lives from fires, even only 1 second could make a major difference. Yet, despite this boost in speed, the fire pole seems to be on its last leg. For example, fire stations in New York have begun either removing fire poles from houses that have them, or building fire poles which are now only 1 story. This is mainly due to concerns raised over the use of the fire pole. Despite its speed, there have been reports of sprains, concussions, and even broken backs. As such, the rising concern over the injuries of firefighters and the improvements over stairs from the spiral staircases once used during the 1870s meant that fire pole loss wouldn't be too much of a slowdown. As such, despite the innovation and speed of the fire pole, it seems that its age could be coming to a close. Firefighter veterans seem opposed to this change, though, not just in terms of the speed downgrade, but also in terms of the loss of tradition. This long-standing tradition, which even firefighters today hold dearly, is an example of just how far David Kenyon and his men broke barriers. While being the first all-African American fire company in Chicago helped them to break barriers, it was ultimately their pioneering of a device which has not only improved the ability of a public service, but has also become a cultural staple that truly proves how they broke barriers.